Hi, Kevin. As one of the founding fathers of Detroit techno, you have helped shape the very DNA of electronic dance music. From pioneering tracks to running your own influential label, KMS Records, your impact has been undeniable. And with a new album dropping soon, you are continuing to craft sounds that will no doubt influence generations to come. It's an absolute honor to welcome you to the House Culture podcast today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here. Glad to share some of my history. It's quite long, but I'm glad I'm doing it. I'm still in it.
Brilliant. We want to hear all about it. So we always like to start at the very beginning. You were born in Brooklyn, right? And then moved to Belleville, Michigan at a young age. How did you first discover music during this period of your life?
Um, Brooklyn, it was quite different, but I was around my mother, so I listened to whatever she listened to at the time. She was originally from Detroit, moved to New York where she became an adult. Um, at that time, the music was just whatever she played. So it was a lot of Motown, um, and you know Michael Jackson, Jackson Five, stuff like that.
Hmm.
A lot of Motown and stuff like that. So that was my kind of beginning. And even when I moved back to Michigan to the Detroit area, it was similar, but it started to change when I met Derek May and Juan Atkins.
Hmm.
I kind of was listening to this station we had. It was like a sister station of, I think it was called WLBS in New York, WBLS, one of the two. So it had reverse call letters here in Michigan. It sounded kind of like New York, club orient, but vocals, Shaka Khan, stuff like that, that I heard in New York. But I used to go back to New York in between. Like, so my father lived in New York. My mother moved back home to Detroit. So they were separated. But I used to go visit my father every summer. So even though I was in Detroit, my music uh, influences came from both. And as I got older, it became even more because I got into music more. I wasn't listening to just what mama listened to.
Hmm.
You start being around your high school friends or your junior high friends, and you start listening to what they listening to. So, but it really changed when Derek May he moved in for one semester in 10th grade, the
Hmm.
second part of the semester, because his mother moved back to Detroit, so she didn't want him to go to school in the half that in the middle of the year. She wanted him to complete it at Belleville. So my mother let Derek move in, and I remember distinctly one day Derek. It was like, all right, man, it's time to go to bed. I'm tired. I got to get some rest. Got to get up early for school. And Dad was like, what? He was like, it's time for the electrifying mojo. So I didn't know nothing about no mojo at that time. And mojo was this DJ radio personality that had this show, the Midnight Funk Association.
Hmm.
So I stayed up, listened to Mojo. He had this great intro theme, this kind of dark bass. It's like Dark Vader like, kind of mysterious, but very much into playing like these intros like Star Wars and stuff like that. So starting to get into the music now. Mojo was playing like stuff like Kraftwerk, B-52s, Prince, Parliament Funkadelic. So I'm going through time now. I don't know exactly when I heard all this,
Yeah.
but this is stuff I was influenced by.
Hmm.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, music like that. But he would not just play a single; he would play like the whole album. So you weren't used to that. You'll hear one single, and then maybe 6 months later or 3 months later, you hear another single from this artist. Well, he would play like albums, and that became like you really started getting attached to artists and music more. It kind of made you appreciate artistry.
Hmm.
So that kind of was my influences.
Yeah.
Music, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned Juan Atkins and Derek May there as well, and obviously the three of you, known as the Belleville Three. How did you guys kind of first properly meet and start really getting together? Was it music that connected you? With obviously the connection to the Mojo Electrifying Mojo radio show, or was there other shared tastes that brought you all together?
Well, me and Derek were in the same grade, which was seventh grade. We were probably 12, 13 years old. Juan was 2 years older, so he was in ninth grade. So
Mhm.
I met Derek playing football, and I met Juan's brother, Aaron Atkins, playing football. And through that, Derek kind of lived close to Juan and Aaron. And I think lived a little further away, but not too far away, a mile or two, a couple miles. Anyhow, just hanging out with Derek and Aaron and just going to their house, Aaron's house, should I say, and Juan's house. That's kind of how I connected with Juan. And Derek, I think, connected previously before and started kind of watching what Juan was doing. Juan had synthesizers and some other equipment that, was above my head at that time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I found out he made music, which became Cybertron.
Mhm.
So, I kind of was a fan, even though I didn't really know him that well. And me and Juan was never really close through this whole time period. I mean, music brought us together years later. But I appreciated his Cybertron album, and he influenced me. And I know he influenced Derek because Derek was around him a lot about using electronic tools to make music, meaning one man could make his own track or be his own band, which
Yeah.
was unique. But at that time, I still, I'm talking about I'm young, 13, 14, let's say, even going into 15, I had no idea I was going to be making music. It took some years for that to
Yeah.
process and to develop. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so what was the plan to begin with then? What were you thinking was going to be your career before music?
I mean, I was just an athlete. I played sports through high school. Started out playing football, which probably was my best sport. Then basketball season. Then I ran track. So it was repetitive each year. And I had this talent to be this prospect for collegiate football. There was a lot of write ups and stuff in the paper, and eventually ended up going to college. And my goal at that time was I wanted to play football.
Hmm.
Even though that, of course, you can't go. That's not my degree. I went for telecommunication, TV, radio, broadcasting because that interests me. So that's where I started at once I graduated high school.
Yeah, yeah. And so when did music start to become kind of taking over for that? And you were kind of, were you interested in DJing first and sharing music, or was it production first that kind of got you there?
Well, it was definitely DJing first, but it was a journey. Um, as I graduated, I had a graduation party at my house.
Hmm.
It was we had a high school organization called Chocolate Sensations, and it was a bunch of black high school kids. We did stuff and gave events, whether it was bowling, going to amusement parks. We just did stuff together, had some fundraisers. So my mother had moved, and I had the whole house to myself basically for a couple months towards the end of high school. So I gave this party, and I invited Juan and Derek because Juan was DJing at the time, and Derek was learning how to be a DJ. I had never seen him DJ at that point, but I invited him out. And you got to remember, Derek moved after that 10th grade year of school. Derek moved to Detroit, so
Hmm.
we kind of lost connection. So we really wasn't connected like that. So as Derek is engaging in the music and staying in contact with Juan, I don't really know about that, but and Juan still lives in Belleville. So they played my party, and it was off the chain. People from Detroit, people from all over. It was just unbelievable. The whole house was full, pool party, all that. So anyway, that kind of intrigued me. Seeing them play, I kind of gravitated to know, like, I know somebody that actually playing this music on vinyl and music that I like and mixing. At the same time, I'm 17. I go back to New York. I'm hanging out with my cousin, and he's taking me to a place called the Paradise Garage. So,
Hmm.
so there's another connection. Larry Levan, he's playing this music, disco stuff you heard on the radio, like Neil Rogers, Chic, and Sister Sledge, and Cerrone, and Shaka Khan. So I'm hearing different versions of this music, or extended versions. So I'm getting a chance to experience that too.
Hmm.
Like, um, so my musical influence when I first started, when I was playing football at Eastern Michigan, 1982, I went to college. 1983, we was like just practicing, getting ready for the next season, and uh, my coaching staff got fired. Another coaching staff came in. They didn't. I didn't connect with them, or they didn't connect with me. I was having some challenges with my books in school,
Hmm.
and somehow me and Derek reconnected. Derek was actually living in Chicago at the time. I knew, but we didn't. It's not like you had cell phones like we have now. You keep in contact. You talk to somebody once every 3 or 4 months, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of gave me an update on what he was doing, and he was helping Juan promote his Cybertron, and I think Juan had made a early Model 500 record, and Derek knew all the guys in Chicago, like Farley and Chippy and
Hmm.
all those. So he was kind of explaining to me about, hey man, Chicago got it going out here. I'm in the house scene, blah blah blah. So at that time, I'm not DJing, but I'm kind of just my ears open. I'm influenced by all these different musical DJs. Let's put it at that time. And on my own campus, like we would give parties. When I say we, it wasn't me. I would go to parties and I would see these two DJs, Art Payne and Keith Martin, playing. I just was infatuated with the mixing. I was like, okay, this is something I might want to do,
Hmm.
So Derek, through conversation, he said, hey, that's my buddies. That's my buddies that go to school and that's playing those parties up there. So he said, let me tell them, hook you guys up, and you can go by and check them out. So I started going by their apartment, and they had their set up in their apartment, these nice 1,200 turntables, mixer, and had all this vinyl, just different kind of stuff, So that kind of was like the beginning. Um, but I could only get on a little because I'm just listening. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just watching. So after maybe let's say a month, 2 months, I was over there every day like it was school. Every day they let me come over, I was over, just absorbing, looking at records, listening. So they had a pamphlet, learn how to mix. It was like some DJ pamphlet.
Yeah.
They sell stylus, turntables, whatever. So I'm like, learn how to mix. Yeah, I want to learn how to mix. And me being a football player, I was very competitive.
Hmm.
But I kind of was quiet and competitive. I wasn't the kind of be in your face. I was kind of in the background, but I'm gonna make some shit happen if that's what I wanted to do. I'm gonna figure it out and be the best at it. So I got that pamphlet and I drove in the snow. I never forget this experience. It took me about 5 hours to get there. Normally it would take three, but it was bad weather. And you go up there and it's a day of might have been 2 days, but definitely was a day. And you just you whatever, you pay your money and they show you the basics on mixing, talk about the equipment, talk about BPM, tell you how to set up your records. So once I did that course, it gave me confidence. Stuff
Mm.
I didn't know. Guys ain't explaining this to you, because they think they don't know I've got a real interest or think I'm even serious. They don't know, like, so that's their thing they doing. So I'm just hanging out. So I learned that and I went out and bought me some belt drive turntables from a pawn shop.
Yeah.
And I started getting vinyl and started practicing with it kind of in the background in the closet. I was like this closet DJ nobody knew. And all of a sudden, um, on my I pledged a fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma. So as I'm practicing, I'm pledging, but I'm pledging with the mindset. Well, once I become a brother, I'm gonna do the parties here. I'm gonna do the parties. I'm gonna do the party because I'm a brother and I'm a DJ, and that's exactly how I got my start through that process.
Incredible. It's nuts to think that, like you said, that pamphlet, that this DJ kind of course existed, like, at that time as well, to think that, they're actually teaching this stuff. That's kind of blown my mind.
Yeah, yeah. I think the real reason they were doing it is also to sell and get people interested in their brand.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it worked. It definitely worked for me
Yeah.
because that led me into the starting to really starting.
Well, indeed. And playing college parties, I'd imagine, on belt drive decks, that's a real learning curve right there.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't easy, but that was the way because we couldn't afford no 1,200 turntables,
Hmm.
and I was able to scrape up enough money through my parents, and I was working a job. I was like, so through that process, I was able to get enough equipment. I had these two EV speakers, power amp, some kind of mixer. I don't remember which one, but I think it was a Newmark back then, and these belt-driven turntables, and that's all I had to start out. And eventually, I got some little like circle light, disco light. But that's how I got my opportunity. And I had a small car. I had like a EXP, and that's a small like old Camaro. And to get that speakers in there, luckily I stayed on campus. I had to make at least 2 trips
Mm.
to get with all the crates of records and all that. So um, um, yeah, it was quite a process.
A great process.
Get paid $50. That was it. But it was for the love of the music. The money didn't even make a difference. I wanted the gig,
Yeah.
and if I would have been like, well, I need $200, I might have never got that opportunity, and then I would have never maybe branched off and got the experience was more important than the money,
Yeah.
and then when you're doing something you love, it's really not work.
Yeah.
It's something you love, so you don't even think of it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible. So when was the moment that you kind of started moving into production as well? I mean, do I have it right that your first production that was released, it was under the alias Cream and Triangle of Love? Is that your first?
That was my first. That was my
Yeah. So
first. So
1987.
yeah, yeah. So I started DJing somewhere between 1983 and 1984. Let's say 1984 is when I probably, actually, no, I really didn't start DJing. I was practicing in 1984. I was a closet kind of DJ and kind of hanging around when Derek had moved back to Detroit, kind of hanging around him, hanging around Art Payne. And then Eddie Folks also was on the campus playing records. He was in a different fraternity, but he was playing their party. So, and Eddie was one badass DJ. I was actually like, wow, this is the best DJ at that time as far as his technique and everything that I had seen,
Mhm.
So I was blown away by that. And so I would say 85, I started working on music slowly. And I think 86 actually was Cream came out on Metroplex first.
Mhm.
And then 87, earlier 87, I started KMS. I decided like, you know, I can do what Juan's doing here. Just take my record, give it to, get it mastered, order some vinyls, get some boxes, and take it to the distributors. And Derek is promoting to different DJs. You give it to them. I was like, well, I can do that myself. So I told Juan, I did. I said, Juan, I want my record back. He had no problem. He said, all right, no
Mhm.
problem. And then I kind of just started the ball rolling, re-released Cream, did some remixes of it, reproduction of it, and put it out. And then I just kept it going. But the real thing that got me into music was, I had a drum machine, 909, and I was messing around with I enjoyed playing with the 909. And it was very inspiring to me that I could make my own drum patterns and
Mhm.
rhythms and all that. And I started bringing it to the parties, playing it, mixing it in between, segueing it in as a section like a record. But then I realized, like, well, that's cool, but you can't just have beats always. Every time is a different beat. So it made me realize, like, okay, so how do I take this and develop from that? How do I create a bass line? How do I create chords? So my brother, luckily, he was in a he was in the music, early technology. He was kind of a futurist, and he worked with Brass Construction, BT Express, and Sky. He was kind of their tour manager. He would tour with them, but he understood everything. So he gave me some insight about MIDI sequencing, told me some equipment to get, and tried to explain the best way he could. And then being around Derek and them, it was a learning curve. Juan wasn't like open to. You couldn't hang out with Juan and be in his environment because he looked at us like, you know, we cool and all that, but y'all, I'm serious. Now, this is my career. Y'all
Yeah.
just want to play, and he didn't really know like the passion that myself or Derek and some of the other guys had.
Mm.
So you had to kind of learn on your own, really. Um, so my brother, once he explained this and that, and I started, putting some work in, should I say,
Yeah.
lots of hours. The books wasn't written, especially like the stuff from Japan. You couldn't understand the way they was trying to write the English. You couldn't really comprehend a lot of that, to be
Yeah.
honest. So, just a lot of trying to figure it out, and people who understood, like my brother, having conversations with him. I think he came to Detroit. He was on tour with one of the groups, BT Express, and he kind of hung out for a couple of days and gave me a little more insight, so it gave me more confidence. And then I started learning, like, okay, I got a sequence. Okay, I can sequence a bass line. I got my drums. I can MIDI. It's all connected, and MIDI will lock that all in, and I don't have to play but so long. I could play 2 bars, 4 bars, whatever I thought worked, edit it, and I got my groove right.
Mm-hmm.
So then I understood how to put together sequences and drum patterns. I understood a little bit of effects. I mean, I had like a Fostex 8-track board, a Fostex 8 tracks recorder, 909, 808, 727, DX100, and eventually like a CZ 2000. Right. So now I record in Triangle Love. I got all my parts, but I don't understand how to get it in the final stages. That's one thing I didn't really get.
Yeah.
Because basically, I got a bunch of loops: the bass line, chords, drum pattern, with percussion, the percussion pattern, a vocal, a sample of the vocal. But it's all just playing. So I'm thinking like, okay, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
From here. So Juan Atkins actually helped me complete and understand how to finish a record.
Uh-huh.
So it came at a cost, but it was well worth it.
Yeah.
So I had a S900 sampler. I think it was a S900 by Akai. I didn't really use samplers, but I had one. So anyway, he said, what kind of equipment you got there? So I kind of gave him a list of my equipment. He said, "Yeah, I'll come help you, but I want that S900." That's what he told me. Like we friends, but we ain't friends. We really ain't tight like that. I hadn't talked to Juan probably since high school. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, come show me. So come. So he came over to my place, and that's when I learned how to finish a record. So
Ah.
what he did is he actually changed the bass line because I guess he didn't like my bass line,
Mm-hmm.
and everything else he kept. And then basically he was arranging the different sections. He was practicing mutes on my board and arranging. Of course, he was balancing and EQ. I understood a little bit about that too,
Mm.
little effects. But what he did is make an intro,
Yeah.
and then he printed to tape. Then he did the next section, and then he did whatever. Let's say 8 sections, and then he spliced it up and connected it all.
Mm-hmm.
And once I seen that, man, I took off. I was like, I got it. I got it. I got the last piece. I didn't need no more help,
Yeah.
Um, even though my first productions really was collaborations, because guys, we would hang out with each other. Sometimes Derek, we bring equipment together. Like I would use like another keyboard that maybe wasn't mine, or vice versa. Eddie would use my drum machine, or Eddie would come over as I'm making a record and touch the drum machine and do a roll. A lot of that kind of was going on
Mhm.
in my first three records. Triangle Love.
Yeah.
Then I did an Intercity, which was an inner city with me, Derek May, and James Pennington. It was like an EP.
Mhm.
Uh, um, and then once I started with Reese in San Antonio, that's kind of when I was really on my own.
Yeah.
San Antonio was kind of learning, and I was kind of the expert at that point,
Mhm.
and he was like in the background, very minimal input, but he was, the project was called Reese in San Antonio. I did the sound, I did that on my own. I did um, how to play our music. We did that together, and I just kept learning how to. I just got better because I was, engaged.
Mhm.
That was like the beginning, and now this is being released on my label. Started seeing a little success. I heard Tony Humphries. While I'm talking to my brothers in New York, I was visiting New York and telling them about, yeah, I make music now. It was like, huh? And in the background, Tony Humphries it was a mix show, W whatever,
Mm.
LBS or BLS, and he plays Triangle Love. Do you know how excited I got? I'm screaming up and down, going crazy. That's my record. That's my record. And my brothers, they was like, wow. My other brother, because I had other brothers too. Not the brother who actually showed me, but I'm at my father's house and
Mhm.
I'm explaining it. So, uh, um, but I was off and flying once Juan showed me. That was very, very key. Um, and from that point on, I just got better and better at what I was doing, more confident, started releasing records like crazy, coming up with aliases,
Mhm.
many different aliases, and started having success on the underground level. And obviously, inner city was formed
Yeah.
through this process too.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about next. I mean, what an incredible journey that moment where you can hear your own song on the radio or whatever, or when like we've spoken to so many artists and when they walk into a club and they've heard a DJ play it or whatever, or you hear it on the radio, those are the moments where they're like, actually, I've kind of made this. But so yeah, Inner City, definitely want to talk about the success that you had there. I mean, it's obviously the project alongside vocalist Paris Gray. Firstly, how did you? Well, firstly, I want to talk about. I've got it here. This one. This is. I love this record so much. It's so good. I mean, like, how did you first meet Paris, and how was it a tune before there was a vocal? Like, how did it all come together?
It definitely was a musical piece. I mean, it started with me and James Pendleton. James Pendleton he went to Belleville. So if it had a Belleville four, he was just younger than us. If there was a Belleville four, he's the fourth. A lot of people don't know that he went to Belleville High School too, but he was 2 years younger than me and Derek, and
Mhm.
obviously 4 years younger than Juan. So he came in and kind of the tail end just because he was around us a little. And one day he just came up in my place, and I was just experimenting, showing him equipment and stuff. And I think we had made a record together too, but he didn't really have his own equipment, so he had to rely on being around some of us. So it started. I mean, Big Fun started with me and him. We
Mhm.
both created together. It wasn't just me; it was both of us that made that record. And but it was me that took the lead, and with kind of having the ear, I wanted to add a vocal to it. I didn't know a vocalist at the time that it would work for in Detroit. Now, it
Mhm.
wasn't going to work for the girl who sung Triangle. I just had to wait for the right moment. So by traveling to Chicago, taking promos, whether it was mine, Derek's, Eddie Folks. Me and Derek used to drive up to Chicago every couple weeks. It took 4 hours from Eastern Michigan where I went to school at, and give records out to Farley and all of them. Go to gramophone records, give them copy, and like they listen to it right there and say, "Give me 2 boxes," or whatever. DJ International, that which was distributing records, give them they take whatever 4 boxes. So I met a guy called Terry Housemaster Baldwin through that process. And Paris was singing for him. She sung a record for him, maybe a couple records, and sung for a guy named Mickey Oliver, who also was one of the Chicago guys. And he came to Detroit, and he just wanted, Chicago guys was just like, wow, you Detroit guys, y'all, I like house, but y'all not house. Y'all a little more futuristic. And I was the closest kind of, because I was in between kind of both worlds, between house, New York, Detroit. I could have a tougher track. I could have a vocal track. I could have a disco influence track, whatever. So we connected well. He came to Detroit, playing him this different stuff that I've been working on. And he heard Big Fun before it became Big Fun. He was like, that's how I got to meet Paris. He was like, you should let Paris sing this, man. She'll blow, she'll tear this up. So he introduced me, talked to her over the phone, gave us some direction. Instead, in the city, I don't want to write about love, sex. It's got to be either spiritual, uplifting, something like that. And he took the cassette back to her. She wrote to it, called me up on the phone, sung it, and I was like, wow, that's the perfect fit. So she was, as well as the music, she had a dynamic, different style of voice. It was the perfect combination at that time, especially. We really complemented each other. And one of my goals when I got going within the city was like, I want the music and the vocals both to be catchy, to be hooky. I wanted I can take out the music and you still got such a great hook, or have the music and no vocal, and so they really complement each other.
Yeah.
I brought her to Detroit. She flew in, and I had to go to Juan's studio to record it because I only had 8 tracks. Big Fun was 7 tracks of music. That was it. That was it. 7 tracks. And
Wow.
people always say, like, think, oh, you get 32 tracks, 64 tracks. You hear all these, like, and yeah, I wasn't on that level of trying to even create something that big. I didn't have a board like that. So we had the right elements that worked, but I needed to be able to lay the vocals. So I went to Juan, who had 16 tracks. And we just like did like 2 takes, and it was done.
Wow.
It was just like she just nailed it, and that was it. And uh, that was the beginning. That
Yeah.
was the beginning of Big Fun.
Incredible. And, I mean, it was such a smash over here in the UK as well, and especially Good Life. Also, the follow up. I mean, that was at the very forefront of the acid house explosion over here. I mean, did you have any idea what was going on across the pond over here in terms of your music having such an influence over what was happening amongst like youth culture over here?
I got an opportunity. I had people like, even with Triangle Love, give me calls, or not calls. They were actually faxing me, I think, back then, saying like, we would love to license this record. So I had no clue what they was talking about. I had to kind of do some research, find out the compilation, the jack tracks, all this type of stuff was going on, but I didn't really have a vision. But in 1988, I visited England early 1988, like February, March, maybe even January. Myself, Derek, May, and Blake Baxter, and we was promoting the techno compilation
Hmm.
that POW. So prior to that, Neil Rushton, Derek went to England, met Neil Rushton. Neil Rushton loved the sound of Detroit, and he had a vision because he knew what was going on over there, even though we didn't really know. Came to Detroit, listened to my music, listened to Blake's, listened to, the Wands, Eddie's, and he said, I can take this and get a deal, and you guys got a great sound, and make it a compilation. So after that happened, the record was due to come out. I don't know, let's say June. Um, we were over there promoting it, doing some promo. Me, Derek, and Blake. Me and Derek basically was DJing, and Blake would do like sing some of his tracks in between, like that type of thing. He wasn't playing DJing, but he was like doing the vocals because Blake was like, kind of like the a sex symbol of Detroit, kind of that type of Prince. Like he had that kind of mentality as far as artistry, performing. We never seen ourselves trying to perform
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So just more like behind the decks. Anyway, so I got to experience up north, from Manchester to the Hacienda to just different clubs. And the Hacienda was really good. It was proper. The energy was really good there. We didn't play. I think we got to experience it. Just go. But I played a lot of like other type of clubs. It was really just like pop clubs at the time. They just
Mhm.
it was new and like
Yeah.
people either were into it, didn't know about it, or it was the beginning really. Even though house music had already made some headway over there, um, and played in London. That was probably that was proper. It was a good vibe. Came back, went home, came back in July, and I don't know what happened to that country. It just blew up. It was a virus explosion, and it was just everywhere from the hacienda to the Astoria to heaven. I experienced all that to some of these underground rave events. I was just over there the whole summer, just going through it, and at the same time, Big Fun was being played amongst us, and you had stuff like Danny D and Acid Man and all these different tracks being played. So I was absorbing it all. I was like hearing my stuff, hearing my underground stuff, hearing Strings of Life, along with some of the UK producers that were basically influenced by either Detroit or Chicago. And, at that time, that's where the influence was coming from.
Yeah, yeah, it was a real kind of cross pollination going on. Like, you coming over here and, and getting inspired from what you were hearing over here and taking that back to the US in terms of what you were doing in your own productions. Yes,
Yeah.
great
Yeah. So,
times. Yeah.
yeah, definitely great times. And, I remember when I was over there, that was like the beginning of my remix career. I did We Papa Girl Rappers, and that was the first time like a remix, the way people had heard it. Usually, you get a remix, all the music sound the same, but it's structured different and made more for the DJ. Kind of people like Shep Pettibone and stuff like that
Hmm.
may use a little more effects, stuff like that. But I like just took my production and made their vocals work on my production. That was the first time that was done, and I think I won Remix of the Year by DMC or something like that.
Hmm.
It was crazy, just so much going on from underground stuff to inner city, and that became another level of commercialism, I guess you can say, even though it wasn't. I always wanted to make a record that people could sing to, but also dance to.
Yeah.
So I achieved that, but I didn't know like it was going to be like to this level. All of a sudden it's like I'm some kind of pop star in a way. I'm doing like TV shows like Top of the Pops, and I never had that vision, but I kind of had to change. And Paris was a perfect fit because she absorbed it all and embraced it like a star.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really launched the whole kind of scene and movement over here. And yeah, it's, even to this day, you play Big Fun, Good Life, Pennies from Heaven, any of that stuff. It just, it gets a massive, massive reaction. I mean, I love, this is last record that I've got here. This, I absolutely, absolutely love Definition of Love. I'm a sucker for a huge piano. Yeah, it's a personal
That
favorite.
made that while I was over there in the studio. Just I was over there in the summer, and
Hmm.
like you had these studio sessions, and you just go in and create. And that's how I met my first wife. That
Hmm.
was Anne, who we met in Zamba Studios, and then connected, and then I started doing music with her, and that was the first record with her. So, yeah.
Amazing. Right. Well, look, I mean, we have to move on a little bit to like talk about the current times because, you are releasing, you've been releasing over the years anyway, under the alias E-Dancer. And, you had, an album back in, was it, I think 98, Heavenly, was the first album that you released under that, that moniker. I mean, before we diving in and talk about the new album, how did you differentiate the E-Dancer project from what you'd done in your other guises, such as like Inner City and Chaos and stuff like that? How was E-Dancer different from that?
Yeah, I think the Detroit guys helped me get to that level because I done had all this major success, and then like, of course, I made records like Rock to the Beat, Reese and San Antonio, collaborated on a few other projects, but and I did the Reese with the Reese bass, but I felt like I wanted to make a techno album and say, look, I'm techno too. Don't try to say I'm commercial or because I have different influences than you guys. It was like a point to prove in a way, but it was my other side of me actually that was my vision of what techno meant to me and how I perceive producing it. So that's what E-Dancer was about, you know. And it didn't have to be super fast. It could be, some tracks was fast, some tracks were slower. But that's what made me create that album, really.
Yeah, yeah. And here we are, like nearly, well, over 25 years later. It's like you're going to drop the follow up on us. It's a 10-track album produced in partnership with your son as well. So why was the timing right for this return on this over a quarter of a decade?
Well, so I re-released the '98 album with some slight edits and additions, some drum rolls, just you know, made it a little more modernized to what today's DJ play, right?
Hmm.
So I did that, like whatever, 2018 or something like that, and um, I did the thing with Adam Bear, let them remix like the old stuff, and so then I was like, well, it's time for a new phase, and it's time for another record. But what really helped me do that is I kept hearing that my son Dantes, his music, it just always sounded like me. Whether it was Inner City sounding like, or he sounded like E Dancer. Like I would go here, I play him record. I hear something he made or was working on and say, "Man, you ripped me off," and he'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And then I say, "That sound like this record." And then I go give him an example. I go play it for him. He'd be like, "Wow," himself. I say, so it was natural
Mm.
progression, and I'm traveling, flying all over, doing more gigs, much more gigs than him. So he's just working on music like crazy. I mean, he reminds me of me. Like back in the day, I'm came up with all these aliens, doing all different kind of tracks, just wanted to release music. So that what drew me into saying like, let's just work on a record together. I heard 2 or 3 tracks he was working on. Then, we came up with a formula as he started them. If I liked it, I would take it over and finish it. And that's what made that whole project work.
Yeah.
And actually, even though you said 10 tracks, it's probably going to be 13 or 14.
Oh, no way.
It's some more additions that's going to be added. So that we're quite happy with to bring into the album.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait here to hear the rest. I mean, so, working with your son, it's like, are you still father and son in the studio, or are you just seen as colleagues? How does it get? Like, who brings what to the table, and does it get tetchy?
No, it works real good because most of the time he already done started something.
Hmm.
So I'll listen. He'll want my opinion or ear or sometimes I like 90% of what he's doing already. So it's just a matter of really tweaking stuff. Sometimes he asks me, "Well, how you do your drums and get that shuffle sound?" I show him and little stuff like that, and then he'll add that flavor. But he's really the workhorse. I've become more of the producer and not to do kind of everything, and our studios it was all in the box, but as I got more involved, I made it more hybrid, brought more sense in, and so he kind of sees both worlds, the analog world, and we figure out how to balance it very well. We can be in the box if we want. I'm used to touching buttons, knobs. I don't want to be touching mouses. Not to mess with plugins or any of that. So he's great with that.
Yeah.
I'm slower with that, but touching knobs and forming sounds and synthesizers. We have what, one, two, three, four, five, six, at least seven synthesizers just within, right in this room right here.
Yeah.
So, but we have a great relationship how it works. He travels a lot of the tours with me. We're working on an E-Dancer live show. That we're gonna. I know we're doing Mutech. I know we're doing Loveland in Amsterdam. So we just starting to build up some shows as the album comes out.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Excellent.
but he's usually up on the technology more than me, and then I'll absorb some of it, not as much as him. Let's put it that way.
I mean, keep it old school. I mean, yeah, I can imagine the physical nature of creating music. Punching keys and turning knobs and stuff like that. That's a lot more up my street as well, to be honest with you, rather than looking at something
Different
on the screen.
dynamic. It's a true dynamic that. But however it works for whoever, everybody has their own way. In the end, it's all about the results you able to achieve.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you're in your studio right now. I mean, whereabouts in the world is that? It's in Detroit, right?
Yeah. It's a suburb of Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in my house in the basement.
And how has that studio changed for you over the years in terms of like equipment and things like that? Is it something that you've like maintained? I love, you saying about how you love the 909 and all those types of things. Are you absolutely wedded to some of this machinery, or are you a case of like, I just replace it as I go?
I mean, I replace it as I go. I've everything I've had from the past. I don't have. I have one device that I have from the past, what I created the respace on. I recently, I don't know if you've seen that. I recently did a short clip of
Yeah.
create the respace.
Uh-huh.
A short version of it, but so. But everything I had in the past was gone, and I've rebuilt it to simulate some of that stuff, like the different synths I have, and I have like a state logic controller that at least if I'm working in Ableton or Pro Tools, I don't have to necessarily always be on the mouse. I can push, cut solo. I can mess with my plugins. I can do that type of stuff. So it gives me a feel of a board. I don't have a board like I used to have. I have, still some outboard gear. I have a nice limiter that I like to use that's analog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a nice hybrid,
Cool.
some really good speakers, some ATCs with a couple subs, so we can get the right vibe in here for when we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're going to keep hold of one piece of equipment from the old days, it's got to be the one with the respace.
That's right. That's the one I have. I created that sound, and I created the record, the sound. So I created a few nice sounds in that unit. So yeah, it's definitely a classic piece.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, look, we're at the point of the interview where we're going to talk about the House Culture Perfect playlist. And this is the 5 different themes that go into the playlist. So just for anyone listening, the background is that, all of our previous podcast guests, this is going to be episode 82. And everyone submitted tracks based on these 5 themes. So the playlist is on Spotify. It's called House Culture Perfect Playlist. It's absolutely massive in terms of the number of tracks in there now because of the amount of guests that we've had. So this is just about, in terms of the different themes, what comes to your mind when you hear this theme, and just paint us a little picture as to how meaningful this track is to you, or why that would have popped into your head when I've told you what the theme is. So the first one is always a Catalyst tune, a track that would have opened your ears to electronic music, maybe from a young age or maybe from whenever. I mean, what would pop into your head for that one?
Well, I would think Cybertron, Clear.
Hmm.
You know, it's kind of the first track that really opened my ears. I mean, when I heard it, I knew something shifted. I was like, wait, that's like totally different, unique. What the hell? How was this made? You
Yeah.
know, and yeah, obviously knowing that it was Juan, it made me just excited to know someone that was actually making music. You know, and it sounded like futuristic music, machine funk sound that came from another dimension, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly had that impact. And, okay, so the next one is a floor filler. What is a go-to floor filler for you if you're DJing somewhere and, always gets the big reaction?
Marshall Jefferson, Move Your Body. People just love that song. I mean, I love it still to this day. Um, and when you play it, you drop out the music, and you hear people saying it as you go. Come back in, they just saying it. They know it.
Yeah,
Like the young generation as well. They know it.
yeah.
So that's always a floor filler.
Yeah, and it's got that propulsive piano at the beginning that is just like gets you ready for what's about to be unleashed. Okay, a sunsetter, a track that would soundtrack a perfect sunset for you, something maybe chilled.
I'm just gonna say, still rhythm, strings of life.
Hmm.
You just embrace it, even though it kicks in eventually. But just the piano and the chords. I mean, you can really can play it any time, and it can work definitely as a sunset
Hmm.
track for sure.
Yeah, just starting off your now the sun's gone down, off you go. Okay, so again, yeah, this can be any genre, a tearjerker, a track that would just fill you with emotion every time you hear it.
Blackwater, Octave One.
Hmm.
Um, um, yeah, I think it's up tempo. It's got some great, especially when they did the orchestra version, the strings, the violins, and all that. With Anne, her voice is just perfect. It's the Detroit Soul completely.
Yeah, what a summation for that track. I mean, yeah, it's an incredible piece of work. Yeah, I heard it out recently as well. It's just, it still gets that reaction. It's amazing. Okay, the last tune, you've done an amazing set somewhere. The crowd are asking for one more. What do you play?
I hate to say it, but I do. That's what I do a lot. Good life, inner city. You know, and it's like usually my last tune. Like people be asking me to say, "Oh, you gonna play Good Life?" But I always play it. It's like the last tune or one more tune. I play a different version than the original, but it still works. And
Yeah, if it still works. And it's that expectation, isn't it? If people, come to see you, it's a real balance. Of, like I said, we've spoken to so many people here, that expectation of a crowd, but also you want to deliver something for them as well. It's about meeting them in the middle. And if there's the expectation, you're going to play when you're playing Good Life.
yeah, yeah. It's funny when that happens because, like, one thing when you heard your song so many times, and so many different remixes or different versions, sometimes you just don't want to play it. You just don't want to play it. But I always find a way to play some of my songs in the set, whether it's E-Dancer, Get Life is almost guaranteed to hear. And then sometimes you'll hear people say, like, they're asking, you play this song? And sometimes even I'm not even thinking about that song, but when they don't say it because they can't really communicate, but they'll put their phone up
Hmm.
and they'll have the title.
Yeah.
And sometimes I will actually go find that song and play it too, because I like to. I want people to hear. Everybody. You got different songs you really embrace, like maybe "Good Life." Oh, that's a great song, but I really love this song, and I wish I could hear you play that. So I
Yeah.
don't get stuck on like, well, I play what I play, and you just have to listen to it. I'm not going to take like 1,000 requests, but like every now and then I will venture off and play a song of
Yeah.
mine that people put up on their phones.
Yeah. Nice. Keeps it exciting. Cool. Well, look, this is the last question that we always ask our guests on the House Culture podcast. So, this is We Are House Culture. You're on the House Culture podcast. I mean, we're here to kind of talk to anyone and everyone who's major part of the scene, whether that's artists, producers, club owners, people that are into the fashion side of the music business as well. And it's a real platform for people to make sure that the listeners understand the heritage and the history of where this scene has come from, by revealing the stories of the people that have actually been through it. So when you think of house music and house culture as a scene, a community, a movement, what are the most meaningful aspects of it for you, and what should our listeners understand about the scene that you could tell them?
Everything is inspired from Our music is inspired from something prior, something to inspire us. Whether it was like back then, for a lot of the music that we was inspired with, it was like disco, soul, funk. A lot of this music was brought together through those inspirations, and technology has helped it advance. And a lot of it came from black artists. A majority of it came from black artists, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It was a scene where it was only black people or gay people dancing to this music. So it's amazing to see, like, and we had this vision always that music was for the world. It was universal, and it has brought people together all these years. I think more than any other type of music, and it's a peaceful, loving, uplifting music in general that people can go engage and embrace the music and really let loose. So that's a proud moment, and I think it will continue. And that's just special to be able to be a part of a creation like this.
Incredible. You've absolutely nailed it. Kevin Saunderson, thank you so much.
And thank you.